The bench press is an amazing muscle building exercise. It's very rare that you see someone with a huge bench press and a small chest, and there's a good reason for that. In today's video, we're going to go through how you can perform the bench press correctly to target those pecs and build a massive chest, but also on how to do it safely to prevent injury. And it's best that you learn to do this now rather than later, so that you don't end up building bad habits and have to pay the price later down the line. So with that being said, let's get into it. What are you saying, guys? Welcome back to another video. If you're new to the channel, my name's Isa and I'm a medical student with a passion for fitness. So to start off, let's look at some of the muscles that are actually trained during this exercise. So the three main muscles that are used in the bench press are the pectoralis major, or your chest, the anterior deltoids, or the front part of your shoulder, and the triceps on the back of your arm. And there's another muscle which is being worked, which is quite small, called the coracobrachialis, and this is what stops your hands from sliding apart and the bar just collapsing onto your chest. So it allows for shoulder adduction on the bar. So before we start the exercise, it's important to do a small warm-up, as this not only helps prevent injury, but one 2010 study showed that it can actually lead to an improved performance, and it doesn't really have any downsides either. So what I'd recommend is just 5 minutes of light cardio before you start. It can be running, rowing, cycling, just anything to get the body temperature a bit higher and to just break a bit of a sweat. And next up, it's especially important if you're going to lift a heavy weight or you're planning on doing a high frequency bench press program, is that you warm up the rotator cuff muscles. These are the muscles that encapsulate your shoulder and are actually not visible from the outside, but play a huge role in shoulder stability and preventing injury. And so what I'll usually do is some light cable work, so that we warm up those muscles and get them ready to perform the bench press exercise. And that just involves some internal and external rotation with a very light weight. You don't want to work the muscles too hard and fatigue them already, because we are going to need them in just a second. The reason that we use a cable is so that we can actually work these rotator cuff muscles directly. You may see people using dumbbells to try and do this, but it doesn't really work unless you're lying down on the floor, because the muscles aren't really doing anything, because a lot of it is either gravity or just momentum, and so you aren't really working the muscles as much as you may think. And after that, I'll make some circular motions with my arm to warm up the joint, and I actually prefer to do it with a bent arm. You might see a lot of people doing it with a straight arm, but personally I prefer a bent arm, because then you can really just focus on that one joint and make sure that you're performing a full range of motion, and this is just going to help loosen up the joint and lubricate it. And before I actually start my working set, I'll always practice with the bar alone, so that I just get a feel for it and make sure my form is good and ready to go. I'll then start loading the bar with some weight and attaching the clips. And just a little tip for you, if you're lifting a heavy weight on your own and there's no one to kind of spot you, then you might want to leave the clips off, as if you have to bail and the weight's getting really heavy, you don't have anyone to support you, and so the only option will be to ditch the weight and to kind of slide it off the side. And if you have the clips on there, you're not going to be able to do that, and you're going to be stuck. So before I actually get under the bar, I just quickly reposition the bar to make sure that it's even on both sides. And this is going to help you later on when it comes to unracking the bar, so that it's more even when you lift off. So when you're getting into position, you want to make sure that your head is in a comfortable position underneath the bar, where your eyes are directly below the bar. So if you were to draw an imaginary line between your eyes and the bar, it should be a straight line. You don't want to be as too far back, where your entire head is behind the bar. And also you don't want to be too far forward, where you feel like your arms are reaching far behind you just to unrack the bar. And when you're actually gripping the bar, you want your hands to be an equal distance from the center on either side, so that it's not unbalanced, as this will cause one side of the chest to be bigger than the other, for example. And what you want to do is wrap around the bar using your thumbs, so that the bar is securely in your palms, and this is the most secure grip. What you don't want to do is go thumbless. Another name for this grip is the suicide grip, and so you can imagine why you don't want to be using this. In terms of your grip width, if you want to really build the bulk of the chest, then I recommend a grip which is 1.5 times shoulder width apart. And studies show that going any wider than this increases the risk of shoulder injuries, such as instability or even rupturing a tendon of your chest. On the flip side, you can use a more narrow grip and this is going to activate your triceps a bit more and also the upper chest. So you can use this grip if those are the parts you want to grow. And what you want to do with your shoulders is bring them down and backwards. And a cue for thinking of how to do this is imagine there's a peanut in between your shoulder blades and you want to stop it from falling, and so you have to squeeze your shoulder blades as tight as you can backwards to keep it from falling. And there are two main benefits for doing this. The first one is that it's going to allow us to focus more on the chest muscle, and that's going to do more of the work over the shoulder. And this is because as you pull the shoulder back, we're stretching the chest more, and so there's more tension in it and it's ready to work. The second thing is that it creates a nice stable base, and this helps with shoulder health but also keeping the bar stable. Next up, with your feet, you want to have them either side of the bench with the toes facing outwards and the heels on the floor. And this is going to allow you to push through your legs while you're pushing the bar up, and this is going to generate drive. You want to imagine as if you're sliding your back up the bench, and this is going to help get that bar up. What you don't want to do is what I actually used to do myself, which was leave your feet out in front and not use them at all. This way you're not taking advantage of the leverages at your disposal, and so you're not lifting as much as you could. But at the same time, we don't want to be using our feet too much, where we're pushing so much that our butt lifts off the bench. Now you may have noticed earlier when we pulled our shoulders back, this naturally created a small arch in our lower back. Not only is an arched back in this position natural, but it also helps shoulder stability. So the shoulder is a ball and socket joint. When you're creating this arch, it pushes the shoulder downwards, and so it allows the ball and socket to fit more closely together and helps prevent any instability issues in what is an already unstable joint. Now if you're a beginner, what you can do is make a fist and place it under your lower back to make sure that you have the decent height. And you may see with more advanced lifters that they have even bigger arches and more extreme arches, and this has the added benefit that the bar isn't moving as far, so you have a reduced range of motion, and that allows you to load the bar with more weight, and so you can get stronger and push more weight. And although these extreme arches look weird and kind of scary, I'll leave a link in the description below where Dr. Mike Israetel explains how it's completely safe as long as you don't take it too far. Now that we're in position, we're ready to lift the bar, and you can do this by pushing upwards and then bringing it forwards. And as with any compound lift, this is the point that we brace, and we do this by taking a deep breath in and holding it, and this makes our base more rigid and firm. And with your wrists, a big mistake which I used to do a lot as well is that you let your wrists roll backwards into a hyperextended position, and over time this is going to cause wrist pain. And so instead we should focus on tilting our wrists so that it's in a neutral position so that our fists are facing the ceiling. Having said that, with heavier weight, a slight extension of the wrists is acceptable as well. Okay, so in the descent when we're bringing the bar down, a mistake that a lot of people make is flaring the elbows out wide. And although this does focus more on the chest, it can actually cause shoulder impingement and can damage the shoulder because you can get internal rotation, especially at the bottom of the motion. So instead what we want to do is keep our elbows at a 45-degree angle. Yes, this works the chest slightly less, but in the long run your shoulders are going to thank you for it. You'll notice that when you bring your elbows down like this, naturally the bar comes out in front of you a bit more. And this is correct. What we don't want to do is have the bar going completely straight up and down. Instead, the bar should come forward slightly and touch the highest part of your chest, which for me is around the end of the sternum. Then when you're pushing up, you push slightly backwards as well, and this is going to return you to the original starting position. Now, in terms of range of motion, we want to bring the bar down so that it touches the chest, and then push it back up so that our shoulders are in the starting position and not any further than that. What some people do is extend the shoulders too far out, and so they lose that original tucked position and they lose all that stability that we just made. Equally, unless you have shoulder pain or shoulder problems already, you want to bring the bar all the way down to actually touch the chest and complete the full range of motion. And finally, when you finish your set, when you're trying to rack, pull the bar backwards so that it makes contact with the rack, and then let it drop down into position. You don't want to try and do it in one motion where you go straight from your chest right onto the rack, as not only can this be hard with a heavier weight, but also you're kind of cheating that last rep and you aren't getting the full range of motion. And that's it, you've now finished the bench press, and what I like to do afterwards is just stretch out the pecs a bit, as this not only helps reduce the soreness that you're going to feel for the next couple of days, but studies also show that it helps tendon health and it helps strengthen the tendons. So I stretch it with the elbow in a bent position, as this is what stretches the pec muscles themselves, and then I'll also do this with a straight arm to stretch the small coracobrachialis muscle, which we spoke about earlier. And in terms of sets and reps, for muscle growth in particular, studies show that whether you're doing a high weight with low reps or a low weight with high reps, that they lead to similar amounts of muscle growth. However, I'd recommend using the first one, which is a higher weight with lower reps, as it's then easier to overload over time because you can simply add more weight or add more reps. Whereas if you're using a low weight with high reps, you're just going to keep adding more and more reps and the workout's just going to become really boring. Also, for muscle growth, eccentric reps have shown to increase the muscle size the most out of all the other types of techniques that are used. So what I'd recommend is to bring the bar down slowly and to control it on the way down and then be explosive on the way up. And this way you're focusing on that eccentric portion of the range of motion. And this is what causes all those little tears in the muscle, which are then filled in with new muscle, the muscle gets bigger, and you know the rest. So I know we went through a lot in today's video and it's a lot to get your head around, and when you're actually doing it, it's hard to think of doing all these different things at the same time. So if you are a beginner, I'd recommend starting simply with the bar itself and then just working your way up slowly with a lighter weight in the beginning so that you know that your form is on point. And even myself to this day, I always practice with the bar before I start, because everyone needs to, remind themselves. You even see professional powerlifters, everyone practices with the bar so that they make sure that their form is on point. And please do me a huge favor, and that is, if you liked the video, you learned something new or you found it interesting, click the like button down below and also subscribe if you are new for more videos backed by science. But having said that, guys, work hard but work smart, and I'll see you in the next video.